Hello guys, my name is Rastility, and today we're going to be going over the history of Ranger, or as some older players might call him, Outlaw. This tower is really interesting to me, and by far has some of the most history out of any tower in the game. In this video, I'm going to be trying to go over every single bit of important history about the Ranger Tower. Now, I'm going to stop delaying the video, and I hope you enjoy the history of Ranger, or of should I say, Outlaw. The history of Outlaw dates all the way back to June of 2019, 6 years from the date of this video's upload, back when this tower was simply just Outlaw and wasn't known as Ranger. Now, the name Outlaw definitely made sense in my opinion, because just look at this dude at the max level. He looks so cool. Anyways, that aside, this tower originally costed 4,250 coins to unlock. In-game, he costed 1,250 cash to place, costed 45,800 to fully max out, had 30 range, and did 27 DPS at max level. Now, this tower was absolutely crazy expensive back then. Even now, that compares to costs of towers like Engineer and Accelerator. Ranger had no placement limit back then as well, and was also a splash damage tower at level 4, similar to how it is today. It's worth mentioning that this tower also had hidden detection at level 0 as well. Now, I've avoided talking about the absolute garbage cost efficiency this tower had because I'm not entirely sure about this, but this tower had a crazy 1,676.43 cost efficiency. I don't think this was exactly standard, as Minigunner, who was also in the game at the time, actually had a pretty solid 44 DPS for 1,800 cash and had 411.23 cost efficiency. So here comes the part I'm not entirely sure about. Isn't this, like, really bad? I think it kind of was, because a few weeks later on July 10th, 2019, Outlaw received a buff, giving him 60 DPS rather than his previous 27 DPS for the same amount of cost. Nothing about this tower was adjusted other than his DPS, knocking his cost efficiency down from 1,676.43 to 788.85. Now, you have to keep in mind that TDS inflation does in fact exist, and the game is no longer even close to how it was in its release date, so 60 DPS at max level was definitely better back then than it is now. Now, after this buff on July 10th, nothing too big would happen to this tower until around October 13th, 2019 on the Mega Update. This update overall rebalanced Outlaw's stats, buffing his DPS from 60 all the way up to around 100. However, in return, that Outlaw was stripped of its splash damage at levels 4 and above, which would change how the tower existed for years to come. Along the way, Outlaw received little to no changes other than the big change of giving a placement limit, until the overhaul update on October 29th, 2020. This update was by far the craziest for Outlaw, completely overhauling its appearance, but most importantly, changing it to the tower we know it as now, the Ranger. However, other than saying goodbye to Outlaw and hello to Ranger, there were little to no positive changes about this tower. This tower's DPS decreased from 95 to 85 and lost hidden detection, and it's safe to say that the community's opinions were very mixed. Some people saying that the hidden detection removal made using it pointless, and others saying that it's still a good tower. However people may have felt about the new Outlaw, they would just have to accept it, because for 2 years straight, Ranger had barely any changes made to it whatsoever. This was until the Violent Night update, where Ranger received a huge buff, overall making its DPS better on all of its levels, most notably the final level, where it got buffed from 85 DPS to 128 DPS. Now, there were so many people saying it was back, and it reignited the debate of Ranger versus Accelerator, with some people saying that Ranger was better because it could see most of the map and because it has no stun, and also had more comparable DPS to Accelerator. However, as you may or may not know, Accelerator had RNG DPS back then, and was completely different back then and isn't similar to how it is today, which was why this debate was started. For almost a year straight, everyone had no complaints or problems with Ranger, being used commonly in a lot of modes and helping to triumph. It's surprising, because he had absolutely no balance changes for that entire year as well. And then boom, he literally just receives another random rework out of nowhere. Okay, well, I exaggerated. TDS had an update forecast released on September 20th, 2023, leaking the Ranger and Minigunner rework. Now, this rework changed Ranger to be the Ranger we know today, buffing his DPS up from 120 to 178, which is absolutely crazy. Ranger received more crazy changes as well, such as receiving his old splash damage back, and also buffing the range of nearby towers. This update also made Ranger the most expensive it has ever been, bumping up its total price from 43,350 cash to 63,000 cash. This update also gave Ranger the most range it has ever had, giving him 15 range on all levels, truly making him a Ranger. Now, Ranger went from one of the most boring towers to a really unique tower that not only damages enemies, but also provides support to other units. Now, since I only read out the really interesting parts to you, I skipped over a lot of details that were overall just smaller. At the start of this video, I said that Ranger had the most history out of any tower in the game, but I only mentioned around 4 versions of Ranger. If you include every single bit of history this tower has ever had, it would span over 18 versions, being the second most changed tower in the game compared to Crook Boss' 23 versions. As a comparison, a rough estimate for the average amount of versions for each tower is around 8 versions, and Ranger has 10 more than that. Overall, Ranger went from the worst to the best to the worst again to the best again, making him a seemingly bad tower, buffing him to a good tower, then pointlessly reworking him to not be the greatest, buffing him after, then reworking him again, buffing him even more. However, after all this, it's safe to say he's still truly Outlaw because his icons still haven't been changed yet, 6 years later. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. I really can't thank you guys enough for the recent support, as I've been getting so many subscribers each day, and I've skyrocketed from just 713 subscribers to over 1.3k within the past 2 weeks. If you're really interested in me and my content, you should also join my Discord server, which I have recently opened. You can join through the link in the pinned comment or in the description. If you want to support me even more, then I also recently opened a membership option, which you can support me through there as well. However, any amount of support you want to give me I'm grateful for, so don't feel obligated to purchase a membership. Anyways, my name is Rastility. I hope you enjoyed the history of Ranger. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.